This is America Now with Andy Dean.
Welcome back. Okay, joining us now, Adam Thompson, New York criminal defense attorney, practicing over 25 years. We're going to do our legal segment. Adam, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, Andy? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. So I got 3 or 4 stories we need to cover. First, out of Ohio, a federal judge is looking into a death penalty case. They're saying that the lethal injection drug that they're about to use in Ohio may cause pain to this rapist murderer that they're so concerned about. So I'm going to ask you about this case, and hopefully they're going to inject this guy. Otherwise, we should just throw him off a cliff. And then we're going to talk national security. Osama bin Laden's bodyguard was released from Guantanamo Bay today. He's now a free man. His name is Mohammed Jihad something, and now he's free. We'll discuss that, plus Obama making big changes to the NSA next week. So we can tell once again that September 11, 2001 has been completely forgotten by this administration. And then lastly, we're going to take a turn. We'll lighten it up with Flavor Flav, who, I don't know if he's an alcoholic or a drug addict, but he's in trouble with the law again. And what he's done this time is so amazing. We're going to discuss and have fun with this one. Okay, Adam, let's turn first to this federal court case out of Ohio. A man by the name of Dennis McGuire, 53 years old, he's sentenced to die. And I always want to mention the victim because when the mainstream press discusses these legal stories, they always forget about the victim. The victim was a 22-year-old girl. Her name was Joy Stewart. She's pregnant. And this animal, this complete animal, raped her and murdered her. And so he was rightly sentenced. He had a trial by jury, sentenced to die. And this is 25 years ago, and they still haven't executed him yet. And now his sick attorney, some messed up attorney, has taken the case, and they're saying that the lethal injection drug that they want to use could cause him pain and harm before he dies. This is offensive to the victims' families. What do you see in this lawsuit?
Well, first of all, the whole issue with the lethal injection, usually these things are already vetted out. They're already determined what injection will be given, what type of drug is acceptable or unacceptable. So right off the bat, it's a little peculiar that he's raising an issue that the type of injection he's going to get at this stage is unacceptable because it creates what's called cruel and unusual punishment in violation of the Eighth Amendment. That's what that part of their argument is. But, I mean, they're also trying to backdoor in other arguments as well. I mean, from what I understand, they also recently filed a separate appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court bringing up issues relating to when he was raised. He was raised in a really horrific childhood with tons of abuse and neglect, and they're basically saying that this wasn't presented by his former attorneys during his case, and particularly the sentencing part of the case, and that when the jury deliberated, basically there was an 11-1 vote, and the one holdout who held out for over 12 hours who finally turned around and said, yeah, give him the death penalty, they're arguing that that person might have held out completely, and with an 11-1 vote, he would have been given a life sentence, not death.
Wait. So I want to understand this, Adam. Because he had a tough childhood, that it's a mitigating factor that he raped and murdered a pregnant young woman, and so they think that because that wasn't heard by the jury about his childhood, that somehow should overturn the case?
Not overturn the case, but reopen the case for the sentencing part of it. Remember, think back to Jodi Arias. You know, what we're going through all now is whether she should get life in prison or the death penalty. And basically, when you get to the death penalty sentencing stage of it, you have a right to present these mitigating factors that maybe the person was abused, maybe they come from a home that was X, Y, or Z. You know, it explores every possibility, and it gives the defendant a chance to plead to the jury because of these reasons, spare my life.
Right. They want to make the jury feel emotional. By the way, Adam, I got to interrupt. Jodi Arias, whatever happened, the death penalty case, the phase of that is still ongoing. Is that right?
Still ongoing. It's been pretty hush-hush, nothing going up with it so far. It hasn't even, really been in the news because they keep adjourning dates. So, yeah, that's still ongoing. No decision made yet.
What's your bet on that case? Does she get the death penalty or life in that case?
Well, I mean, it's a peculiar situation. I think these people that get accused become so famous and the notoriety becomes so hard, and through being in the media so often, they learn acting techniques and they really learn how to be overly deceptive, and she's perfectly in that category. There's a good chance when they go to the next stage, she'll cry so many crocodile tears and try to really fool the jury that there's some jurors out there that are easily deceived, and they may not be able to get a whole panel of 12 people to agree, and they may just give her life in prison.
And death penalty cases, does it have to be unanimous?
Yes, it has to be all 12 people. Now, if it's hung and they can't decide to any degree, then it goes back to, ultimately, it goes back to the judge. I think the way the law is written is the first time it isn't unanimous. The second time they get to retry it, which they're going to do now. And if the retrial is hung again, then it's automatically a life sentence. It can't go back to another death penalty option or a review. That's it.
Interesting.
So at that point, the judge would have to just sentence it to the life term.
Okay. Adam, our next story, well, actually, there are two stories, but around the same topic, and it has to do with national security. I just want to welcome you back for people joining us. Adam Thompson, New York criminal defense attorney. You can find him at adamthompsonlaw.com, practicing for over 25 years. So, Adam, two major national security stories today. Number one, Guantanamo Bay prisoner by the name of Mohammed Abdul Aziz Mujihad. I mean, his name's out of central casting. Literally, jihad is in his name. And this guy was Osama bin Laden's bodyguard. He helped Osama bin Laden escape. This guy was caught in the Tora Bora Mountains back in 2001. He's been in Guantanamo for 12 years. President Obama released him today from prison. Is this a final judgment here when the president and the Justice Department, they let a guy like this go? Is there any appeals process on behalf of the September 11th victims or on behalf of the American people that can kind of get this guy back? Or really is Guantanamo Bay, because it's out of the system, the president has a discretion to let people like this go?
No, this is it. I mean, it wasn't like it was just a presidential decision. I mean, a lot of it involved was supposedly the president met with different defense attorneys that are representing the different inmates and people being held at Guantanamo, and then the government had different attorneys from different agencies all appear, and they basically went through a bunch of information on each case on an individual case-by-case basis to make a decision what they were going to do with these particular prisoners that are left. I think there's like 155 people left there, and as we all know, they've been saying for years that they're going to close it down and they don't want to do it anymore at Guantanamo, but it hasn't happened yet. So I guess in an effort to make this happen, they're just trying to get everybody out there, and the decisions they're making are, is anyone left here that we're really going to try and charge with a crime? And if the answer is no, or they can't come up with the charges to bring and they don't have the proof, then they're just saying get rid of them. But then the next decision is if we get rid of them, certain people they don't want to send back to certain really, terrorist-known nations, like Yemen in particular. They don't want to send certain people back to Yemen where...
Oh, and by the way, this guy, he grew up in Yemen. This guy, not to mention that he was Osama bin Laden's bodyguard. He was caught on the battlefield. His last name is Jihad, and he's from Yemen.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's a problem with this is, regardless of where you're going to release him, he has all the same contacts. He knows all the same people. The hearing that he's being released, wherever they set him loose, they'll go and they'll retrieve him and get him back to wherever the country is. And this is what my problem been, and we discussed this even on my own show, about the problem with Guantanamo to me is, if you're going to put people in there and you're going to hold them, and this goes back to when it all happened. He's been in there 12 years, so it goes back through even when Bush was in. Just try the people, give them what the formal charges are, and give them a military trial. Boom, you're done, and then convict them and put them in jail for life. You're finished. I can't believe a guy is going to be released back to just continue what we initially...
Right. He doesn't know anything else but terrorism. I mean, he was around bin Laden. He's a guy in his mid-30s. All he's known is terrorism. What's he going to go back and, open up a hair salon? We need to put a bullet in this guy's head immediately.
Population who's just going to do more harm. So this is why it made no sense. If you're going to take the time to set up this prison camp and you're going to conduct military prison for people that are enemies of our country, and you arrest them under grounds like this, you should have the evidence to then bring formal charges, give them a trial, even if it's a military trial, and then convict them and put them away. Releasing them, this is a nightmare.
Yeah, well, I still think that we're in something called the war on terrorism, and when you catch guys like this, it's called a war. They need to be dispatched. That's it. They're gone. That's it. We shoot them. It's not complicated. And I know to all the civil libertarians out there, I sound harsh, but when we wake up and there's another attack on New York City or Washington, D.C., and this time it's a chemical attack, and there are 200,000 people dead, I won't sound so harsh then. I'll sound very realistic, and I'll sound like I know what I'm talking about and have common sense. All right, Adam, two more quick ones, and we're going to shift gears and lighten it up a little because it's been a little bit serious. And if you're joining us now, Adam Thompson, criminal defense attorney, The website, AdamThompsonLaw.com, based in New York City. This one's about Flavor Flav, who's the rapper who wears a clock around his neck. He's been on many reality shows, VH1, Flavor Flav. Everybody's seen this. Okay, so he's in court, and TMZ has this story for driving 79 miles per hour in a 55 zone. You know, not that big of a deal. But when he shows up in court, we find out that he has 16 license suspensions, and yet Flavor Flav was let go. What's going on? I mean, at what point, how many license suspensions can a person have, and then they just get let go? The police just say, okay, here you go. What's going on with this case? Can you explain?
Well, I'll tell you, being a celebrity certainly has its advantages. I mean, from what I understand, when the police stopped him on this particular occasion, he was en route to actually go to his mother's funeral. I think she passed at the end of the year, I think it was December 31st even, in 2013. He was actually en route to go to her funeral. So they must have cut him enormous slack, because under normal circumstances, if you're stopped, you're speeding, big deal, you get a ticket. Like you said, it's points on your license. But when you have a suspended license, you know, unless you're really good at talking your way out of it to the police officers, 9 tenths out of 10, you're being cuffed and you're being taken in and you're going through the process. But if it's more than one, and in this occasion, from what I understand, 16 prior suspensions, and what that means, it's all different kind of traffic violations that went unanswered and then led up to the point that each one becomes a suspension. Like maybe you blow a red light, you don't appear, the ticket, you get a suspension, the points count, and it just keeps accumulating. And once you get a suspended license, then it's compounding one on top of the other on top of the other, like a domino effect. So 16 suspended license charges, and he's let go. I mean, this is a problem that I tell you with police officers. It's that they have discretion to do things or not do things. And when it's so, when the transparency of how they treat people is so different, when you know, if it's a celebrity, it's one way. If it's a regular citizen, that person's in jail. No questions asked. Even if a regular citizen said, I'm on the way to my parents' funeral, you think they would care? They would lock the guy up.
Yeah, you know, look, the funeral thing now, that I didn't know that twist in the case. Obviously, we've got to be sympathetic to that. But maybe the cops should make him take a taxi there, or they'll put him back in the cop car and drop him off there. But the idea that, like, he goes to the funeral and then he's still not picked up, that to me is a little strange.
It absolutely is strange, and I have full sympathy for Flavor Flav. Actually met the guy a couple of times. He's very entertaining, nice guy, very friendly, and you know, my sympathies go out to him and his family for the death of his mom. But at the same time, I'm just pointing to a bigger issue that shows the discretion that police officers have, and be a little more sensitive to the regular working man every day that you may stop and encounter.
All right. Well, to me, the mother's funeral thing changes it all, but this guy shouldn't be able to drive a vehicle again, and the fact that he was doing it with 16 license suspensions. I mean, I see the list of charges here. It's like a 30-page list. Okay, one final story, Adam. This is out of New York City, your neck of the woods, and it has to do with a financial crime. And people probably have heard the name Stephen Cohen. He's a financial terrorist. He runs a company called SAC Capital. He's literally like Gordon Gekko on steroids, except he's bald and doesn't have Gordon Gekko's cool hair. 9 people at this company. 9 people have been busted for insider trading. Yet Stephen Cohen is still a free man. He's still trading. He's worth $9 billion. He has a silly art collection. He's a very, very silly man. And now one of his lieutenants is up for insider trading. This guy, Mathew Martoma, who worked for Stephen Cohen. And Mathew Martoma used inside information to save $276 million on a stock trade. So he found out some inside information about a drug trial, and he used that information to profit $276 million for himself. He got a $9 million bonus. And Stephen Cohen, his boss, who once again is a financial terrorist, who we have not busted yet. Why this case is back in the news is Mathew Martoma is going to trial very shortly. And it turns out that he didn't just lie about insider trading. He also lied about his grades. When he was at Harvard Law School, he created a false transcript with his grades, and he ended up getting thrown out from Harvard Law School. What I wanted to ask you legally is that can the prosecution introduce into evidence the fact that this individual who was an insider trader also lied about his grades in his past, or is that not admissible in a trial?
That's a great question. This is what defense attorneys like myself argue all the time with judges and prosecutors over. I mean, usually the argument's going to be if the probative value of what the information has outweighs the prejudicial impact, that it may have on a jury, then it will come, it may be able to be used. You have to show that the probative value is that critical to the case and won't have that prejudice.
Well, Matthew, Adam, let me just stop you 1 second. For this guy, Matthew, who's going to go to trial for insider trading, the fact that he created a false transcript in law school at Harvard, as a member of the jury, that is a very important piece of information that I would like to know, that he has a history of lying, deception, and forgery. And you think that may or may not get introduced? How is it possible that the jury could not hear that?
Oh, no, I'm just giving you what the law is, how a judge will decide it, if the probative value outweighs the prejudicial impact. My personal opinion on this, which I was going to get to, is I think in a circumstance such as this, the defense wants it completely out for the obvious reason that if a jury hears what he did when he was in college, and we're not just talking about changing his grades and manipulating, because there's also the fact on your credibility and your veracity for truthfulness, which that also hits upon. But I think the relevance of it that's really critical to this case is he was such a computer whiz and understood how to actually hack and get into computer systems that everything he did with changing his grades was through his own computer, where he was able to get into certain networks and bypass certain security systems, that he understands how to do this so well that a big part of the new case with the insider trading is the argument is that he did the same with a paper trail or email trail that was left between him and some doctors for some of these pharmaceutical companies that will show that he knew before the date that certain information was coming out, and discussions about either keeping or unloading the stocks was part of the discussion. So what's going to end up happening is I think the government is going to prevail in the argument to say if he so easily knows how to erase everything with his grades and could manipulate and change everything on computers with that, he certainly did it here, and anything that's in an email could have been manufactured, altered, created, erased, and I think it's going to have enough relevance that a judge will probably let it in, and that's certainly something that the defense doesn't want in this case because it's so damning.
Absolutely, because if you're a member of the jury and you hear that he has a pattern his entire life of being a fraud, then that would be a big decision. I mean, for me, if I'm a member of a jury, then this guy's guilty. Okay, we got to jump at Adam Thompson. I'm grateful. The website, adamthompsonlaw.com, New York criminal defense attorney. We're going to take a quick break. Join us on Facebook, America Now with Andy Dean. We'll be right back.